Okay, well, good morning everyone. It is 10 o'clock, so welcome to our Cabinet meeting here in Penrith Town Hall. Good to see you all. So, we'll move through our agenda. So, first of all, do we have any apologies for absence? None this morning. Okay, item 2 is declarations of interest and dispensations. So, I need to declare interest in item 10, early years funding formula, as my wife and 2 of our daughters are childminders and therefore will be affected by that item. So, any other declarations of interest? Dispensations?
Yes, just to remind members that you do have a standard dispensation as set out in Table 3, Part 4 of Section 1 of the Code of Conduct for Councillors, paragraphs 2F, the setting of the authority's council tax requirements, council tax levy or precept under the Local Government Finance Act 1992. That is a standard dispensation within the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, item 3, aspect of exclusion of the public, that shouldn't be necessary. Looking at our agenda today, so we move to item 4, the minutes of the previous meetings. So, it was minutes of the meeting held on 23rd of January. So, any questions, comments, observations? Okay, so are we happy to agree those minutes on those second? Agreed, okay, thank you. So we now move to public participation, and we do have one question this morning from President Jonathan Davis in relation to item 9, which is the budget proposal. So, Jonathan, would you like to step forward?
Morning. On the 17th of October 2023, this Cabinet approved what it called Compact with Town and Parish Councils, with an apparent commitment made by the Southern Furness Council, stating this document sets out how Town and Parish Councils and Westmoreland Furness Council can work together. It goes on to state that Westmoreland Furness Council will define and develop ways of engaging with and working with Town and Parish Councils. Yet any semblance of engagement appears to be a one-way street, more of a top-down. This is what is going to be done. Westmoreland Furness Council will give no engagement, and Town and Parish Councils have no say or input. An example of this, and one of great concern, is contained in the budget papers that this Cabinet will today be asked to approve, and recommendation given to full Council. On page 27 or 29 of this document, draft revenue budget 24-25 medium-term financial plan, in table 13, titled savings. The first line of the table covers parish council tax support grant payments moving forward in future financial years. From 2025 onwards, this shows financial savings for Westmoreland Furness Council. The council tax grant is an amount paid to parish councils to help offset the reduction in precepts as a result of the number of households who receive council tax reductions in the parish. This money is part of the annual funding for the central government Westmoreland Furness Council receives on a district-wide basis. In December, the Town and Parish Councils received an email from the Assistant Director of Finance and the Deputy Section 151 officer setting out that this council tax support grant amount would no longer be paid to parish councils. The email states, I am also writing to advise you that from 2024-25 is the final year that the council tax support grant, by giving advance notice, any impact on your budget can be considered when setting up precept demands. At no time has any engagement or consultation taken place on the ending of this grant support for Town and Parish Councils, and there is no public record of this council having considered or approved and resolved on any such action. Government has previously written to all collection authorities, reminding them that it would only be appropriate not to pass on any local council tax support grant if there were no claimants in the parish. Based on the current public information, central government has been making local council tax support filing settlements to Westmoreland and Furness Council, including the amount for the council tax support scheme, and this is still including the amount attributed to town and parish councils. Can the leader therefore explain on what level Westmoreland and Furness Council consider it right to withhold these amounts from town and parish councils in the area for its own budgetary saving benefits? As the council leader, you are leader of, will be receiving public money from government intended to be passed on to town and parish councils, but will in reality be retaining the funds for its own purposes, raising questions how this action will be anything other than an act of misappropriation of public money by the council.
Okay, thank you, John, for your question. I do have a response which I'll read to you. So, as part of the package of savings proposed to deliver a balanced budget for 24-25 and reduce the budget gap for future years, it's recommended that an amount of £109,000 saving is achieved from the 25-26 period, ending the council tax support grant to parish councils. The award of the council tax support grant to each parish and town councils is a matter for each billing authority to determine. The local government finance settlement does not identify a separate amount for council tax support for local authorities, and there is no amount identified for parish and town councils. The council tax support grant was historically linked to the overall movement in the tax base from providing council tax support, but this is no longer the case, and the grant has remained static amount for each parish council for a number of years. In fact, most authorities ended the council tax support grant to parish and town councils in previous financial years. Two of the legacy authorities had previously indicated the ending of this grant to parishes, but the grant remained in place for 23-24 as part of the decision-making process by the new Westmoreland and Furness Council to commit to maintaining legacy grant decisions in the first year. As part of the budget setting process, it is proposed that the grant should continue for a final year, 24-25, but that it should stop in 25-26. This was included in the 24-25 budget consultation and the medium-term financial plan 24-29 update report to Cabinet received on the 12th of December 2023. It also formed part of the budget consultation process. The Council sent letters at the beginning of December 23 to all parish councils to provide over 12 months notice of the grant ending. Councillors also met with members of the Cumbria Association of Local Councils on the 12th of December 23 as part of the budget consultation process, and this discussion included the proposal to end the council tax support grant to parish and town councils. It is also of note that the proposed increase in the second homes premium from the 1st of April 2025 will increase the tax base of parish and town councils, and this action will provide some compensation for the loss of council tax support grant.
Thank you.
Okay, so now move to item 6, which is statements from the leader and cabinet members. A statement is more of an observation, I think, really at this point, that last week I attended Health and Wellbeing Board workshop, and we had the Health and Wellbeing Board also, and I think the workshop certainly highlighted the number of challenges that we face as Council of Western Furness, particularly struck me in terms of life expectancy differences in wards across our West London-Furness footprint. Yesterday I was speaking with residents on the West Shore of a very blustery Walney Island in respect to coastal erosion. And last night I attended a meeting with Electricity North West and parish council representatives from rural parishes to the west of Windermere in respect of network resilience. And we could go on with the number of challenges that we face. We do face a growing number of challenges, and we're not alone in that. But I believe as the new council we have set a vision for the future. We have a clear council plan, and in order to deliver on that, we need resources to deliver the outcomes that we aspire to achieve. And therefore, we do have an important item on our agenda this morning, and that is our budget proposals, by which we propose to meet the challenges that we face. And I think that will be an interesting item for us to consider. And I would, up front, just at this point, like to thank everyone who's been involved in that particular process, one of a number of financial matters that a huge amount of work is going on behind the scenes. So thank you for that. So with that, do we have any other cabinet members who wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Archer.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Leader, and thank you for your time yesterday on Walney Island. And I just want to point out, if it needs pointing out, that climate change is here, it's affecting us, it's affecting our residents, and it's certainly affecting the people who live on West Shore Caravan Park. And it only underlines and emphasises the importance of what we're doing relative to climate change in West London-Furness and the opportunity we have of contributing towards tackling that crisis. The other crisis for which we just got some information relates to biodiversity loss, and I don't know if anybody saw the news item on BBC last night about the UN report which indicated 1 million species are threatened with extinction. And this is not just a matter of climate change, it's habitat corridors, pollution, invasive species. And again, that puts on us, I think, an enormous responsibility, a moral responsibility to do as much as we can as we develop a local plan. And these, I'm always hesitant to come forward with statements at cabinet meetings which have the opportunity, because there's always some new piece of news which is worse than the previous. But I wanted to point out this report because it is particularly chilling, and it reminds us, again, we need to remind of the importance of what we're doing on tackling biodiversity loss. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cabinet members? Councillor Dartshire.
I could have spoken about this when we were discussing the budget, but I thought I'd highlight it and mention it now. I was wanting to speak about council housing in the Furness area and the housing revenue account. This housing revenue account is a separate pot of money which is managed within the main budget to take in all the rents from the properties and then do all the maintenance work. So we manage about 2,500 properties in the Furness area. I'm not including the Eden properties in this because they're managed slightly separately. We have to have a balanced budget for the housing revenue account. We are going to draw a little bit of money out of the reserves for the housing revenue account to balance it. But the good news is that the government have their formula for how we can calculate what increase in rents we could do would actually allow us to put the rents up by 7.7. But we're very conscious that a lot of our residents are struggling with the cost of living crisis. We've looked therefore and we have reduced the rent increase down to 3.5. You can find this all on the page 36 of the medium, the report we've got on the budget. There was a presentation given on Friday, which I sadly missed because I had another event to attend, by Rebecca Holton, who manages the council housing down in the Furness area, to the Furness councillors, and it gives a lot more detail of all the work we're doing to look after the properties there. One of the reports refers to dwelling rents, and I'm thinking, yeah, these are people who are living in these houses. We have a duty to look after those properties and make sure they're in a very good state. And I'm very pleased because all the time that I've been here, I've been impressed by the work of Barrow Borough Council and the team who work on the housing there. Because a lot of the properties are already up to EPCC and a lot are in a very good state. But at the same time, we are doing a survey to assess all the work we need to do in the future, to do maintenance work and other improvement work to ensure that we keep them to a good standard. The report was sent round, details all this, and I'm trying to ask for that to be sent in some form round to all the councillors. And we've also got in March the presentation of the council housing stock condition survey results. I'm thinking from what I'm hearing that generally we're good. We have got policies in place for dealing with things like mould and damp, but we do get a few counts, but not that many. So I was just going to highlight that because of the good management now and in the past of the housing revenue account, we're able to do this and to keep the rents at a low level increase of 3.5 rather than 7.7 that the government will allow us to do. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Chair. Well, on the cheering and optimistic subject of a vision for the future, I was delighted to be able to participate here in this very room last Friday in the first joint Westmoreland and Cumberland Enhanced Bus Partnership Forum, where, as well as the two local authorities meeting with bus providers, both commercial and community-based, we also have representatives in the room from organisations such as Lake District National Park, Cumbria Tourism, Cumbria Constabulary, and many representatives of other bodies who are interested in participating. And the discussions were very fruitful. I hope that they and those which take place at future meetings, as well as those which take place at the Enhanced Partnership Board, will actively help to inform this council, one assumes also Cumberland Council's bus strategy for the future, part of our general public transport approach, so that we can be up to our promise that we will involve the public and partners in delivering first-rate council for our area. We all know how vital good public transport is in that. So I hope to be able to report further to Cabinet and to the Council on such future occasions when it takes place.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much, on the 30th and indeed the 31st of January, I attended a very interesting and positive and exciting event which was held in Barrow Town Hall, which was convened by the University of Cumbria, and they invited officers, including the Chief Executive from the Arts Council. There were also people there from both health systems, and of course people from ourselves, and a shed load of artists. And so this was a very, very interesting meeting, the aim of which, and I've got an email where the university undertakes to see how the university can support arts and health initiatives in our area. So there was considerable interest in the things that are going on, but perhaps more the potential for things that might go on through social prescribing, and I'm sure some of the work that is happening within my portfolio here in Westland and Furness. So the one on the 30th, which was based in Barrow, was very much looking at arts and health. I went the following day to the one that was held in Cumberland and Carlisle, which was much more focused on youth and youth events and youth provision. And one of the reasons that I wanted to go to that one was because, as you know, we do cross to health systems, and so the people in the former Eden are actually in the other health system. So things that happen in both health systems affect us in Westmoreland and Furness. So as I say, it was a very, very positive meeting. Some very exciting presentations. We look back over since 1999 that arts and health has been attempted to get going properly within Cumbria, former Cumbria, as I know, because it was my field. And so there was a survey in 1999 and a major meeting and a commitment in 2011. So as I said at the meeting last week, you know, this time let's actually do it. And I hope with the new health systems and with the University of Cumbria, with our approach, this can actually happen. And so arts and health is not just a sort of like, how can I put it, a sort of, you know, it's not a pastime, it's actually something which has, it's proven to have direct effect on people's well-being, and that might make you think that it's a bit touchy-feely, not just with people's mental health, but actually it has genuine physiological effects, and it's on the whole a lot less expensive and a lot less invasive than other interventions might be. So this is the opportunity for us to construct a social model of health rather than a medical model of illness, and all steps in that direction to be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So, anyone else? Thank you. Thanks very much. So, we move to item 7, which is questions to Cabinet members, and it's an opportunity for Western Furness councillors to ask any questions of Cabinet. Do we have any questions this morning? Okay, doesn't look like it, so thank you. Referrals to council for overview and scrutiny committees. I'm gathering there's nothing on this item either. So we move to item 9, therefore, which is the 24-25 budget proposal. So I turn to Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Leader. Karen, you've got in front of you the draft budget for 24-25 for Westmoreland Furness Council and the associated medium-term financial plan and capital programme. I'm proud to be presenting this and taking you through this proposal this morning. As a council, we are not yet a year old, and so this is the first budget that has been completed with a full leadership team. It represents the next step in our progress, both being financially stable and delivering upon both our council plan and manifesto priorities. Up front, I'd like to thank all of the finance officers, a number of whom are here, as well as the wider leadership team who worked to make this budget a reality. This morning, I'd like to take you through the background as well as the key themes of the budget, and then I will take you through the recommendations. To start with, I'd like to highlight the context in which this budget has been set. Firstly, as we're all too aware, we've had to face the highest inflation the country has seen for the last 40 years. Although inflation is now subsiding, prices across the economy are more than 20% higher than only 3 years ago. The pressure of this inflation and the knock-on impacts in terms of the salaries that we pay and demand for our services affect us and all local councils across the country. Secondly, we're continuing to face adverse demographic pressures. Our own area has an older than average population, and the numbers over retirement age are growing rapidly. Similarly, the pressures on children's services, particularly spiralling in SEND and under schools transport costs, is an issue for councils right across the country. And thirdly, we cannot ignore that this budget is coming after 14 years of austerity. Local authority core spending power is still way below the levels it was in 2010, despite the increase in demands. And the Institute of Fiscal Studies have been clear. The outlook is bleak. with the expected sustained underlying cuts for local government in terms of broad government spending. The consequences of all this have been predictable. Local authorities are struggling like never before. We've seen 5 councils recently declare Section 114 notices, with others requesting assistance from government. Many local authorities are in a dire financial position. But let me be clear, we are not one of them. Today I'm outlining a clear path for us that delivers both on financial sustainability and on delivering to our residents. Trying to take a broader view, I see that today's budget can be summarised in 3 clear themes. The first theme is about continuing the job of integration and stabilisation after local government reorganisation. This council is only 10 months old, and the process of reorganisation has probably been even more difficult than we expected. As we've continued to build an independent council and separate services from Cumberland, we've identified areas that require further investment. Consequently, this budget includes ensuring that we're putting in a necessary additional spend for areas under the most pressure. That's particularly in children and adult social care. And if I can just refer to that, pressure on Stone and School transport alone requires a £2 million more budget for next year. Many of the key pressures are listed on Table 6 in sections 379 to 395. But we've also included additional budgets for those areas that have suffered most from disaggregation, including some of those that have been disaggregated since Wrestling. We need to ensure that these services are both structured and funded in a way that is sustainable for our council. Beyond that, we've also identified a number of areas that were underinvested in our legacy authorities. This is most notable in the maintenance expenditure for corporate assets. We know that skipping maintenance on schools, care homes, libraries, offices and playgrounds and many other assets is a false economy. So we are including an additional £5.5 million per annum in our capital plan to maintain our assets. This will directly benefit all who use our assets, our communities, our residents, our employees. The second key theme is the need to drive improvement and efficiencies across our council. The budget for this year contains around £10 million of savings, over half of which are permanent. The details are in Table 13. But we need to go further, much further. It's now critical we get on with identifying and then delivering the savings that are required to close the financial gaps over the next 5 years. This means that we need to consider fundamental change to the way we operate and deliver services. Consequently, this budget includes spend under both the headings of capacity and investment. This provides additional funding for the change programme, in particular to support the pay and reward review, to develop a new local plan and to improve the experience of residents dealing with the council, both in terms of systems and processes, including in digital customer and digital capacity. Change programmes in both adults and children's services to reduce long-term pressures through earlier intervention and support. Increase resourcing to those areas that could be bottlenecks, creating delays and potential inefficiencies, particularly in HR and OD and in legal. The expenditure to fund key change projects has been included within directorate budgets. However, we've also included a £3 million budget in 24-25 for new transformation projects that will be released based on having satisfactory business cases. And let me emphasise, efficiency and savings is not about cutting services. Our aim is to improve delivery for communities and residents, but doing that in a way that is more efficient and effective for all. The third key theme is progressing the commitment to deliver our manifesto and council plan commitments. Let me be clear, we cannot do everything at once, but this budget makes significant strides toward delivering on our ambitions. In particular, this budget includes further investment in climate and nature, natural environment, along with a £10 million of capital investment to decarbonise our estate to meet our carbon reduction targets. permanent investment in bus and travel subsidies. This shows a fundamental change from the position of the former legacy authorities. We will continue to support those most in need and those tackling the cruelty of poverty. Not only will we be keeping the generous council tax reduction scheme, but we will be increasing the discretionary housing fund this year. We will be making new investments in community and power to unleash the potential of our communities, increase spending on rights of way, and yes, we will continue to tackle the housing problems with permanent investment in our housing team and a total of £7.5 million of capital in the programme on top of our spend on council houses and a major investment in Marina Village. We are already making progress in transforming our council, but this budget provides the basis for the next steps to retain and further strengthen our services, to invest in savings and service improvement, in further progress to delivering our council plan. But let me also be clear, we're doing this in a managed and prudent way. Our capacity is limited and we cannot do everything at the same time. Rushing change could create huge risks, as we've seen elsewhere. You might even be excused for thinking at times this is a bit of a boring budget, but I can assure you this is not the time for an exciting budget. So what does all this mean for our revenue budget? Today I'm asking Cabinet to reconfirm the key assumptions we took to consultation and to recommend them to Council. Firstly, the council tax will be increased by 2.99%, with a further 2% increase for the adult social care level, with a total increase of 4.99%. This is in line with the government's assumption when they calculate our core spending power. The vast majority of other councils in this country will also be increasing council tax by this amount. I believe the County Council Network survey indicated 90% of councils were making this assumption. Secondly, we will bring forward the empty homes premium from 2 years to 1, and the maximum charge will be increased to 400% of the council tax once a home is empty for 10 years. Following the assent of the Levelling Up Act, we will now charge 100% premium on second homes from April 1st, 2025. I must emphasise that strictly is defined as homes without permanent occupants, so it could be a third home or a fourth home. Also, fees and charges will be increased in line with inflation. That's consistent with our policy. On average, fees and charges will increase by 6.7% based on September's CPI. I would note that the late administration committee has, however, approved a higher increase to offset last year's below inflation increases. Appendix 2 to the report gives you detail on the feedback to our consultation. We have considered this carefully. You will see that the primary objections were around the scale of the increase in fees and charges, and that this is above the current inflation rate. We recognise that inflation has come down since September, but it's almost inevitable that our charges will lag the actual inflation, both on the way up and on the way down. September is the CPI is the base that we've set for comparisons, and that's widely used across government, including for state pensions and working age benefits. I would also note the strong support for additional premiums on empty and second homes. You also see that residents are broadly split in their views on council tax increases. And indeed, I'm sure many of us would agree with some of the comments they make, including the need for us to receive more funding from government rather than council tax, and for us to make savings, which, as I've outlined, is a priority for us to close budgets and gaps in future years. We need to recognise that the increase in council tax have lagged inflation and our costs in recent years. I'm convinced that the level of increases proposed are appropriate and prudent given the financial situation facing us. Apart from the public consultation, I know that the Cabinet will take into consideration the Equality Impact Assessment that's attached as Appendix 9. And I would also like to thank the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee for their helpful input, which is laid out in Appendix 2. When we met in December, I outlined that at that stage we had a projected budget deficit of 5 million for 2024-25. Since then, we've been able to close that gap through a combination of the additional funding announced by government in January and the inclusion of some additional savings. However, this still means that we'll be needing to use around £11 million of reserves, similar to the level I indicated in December. However, I am happy that this level of reserves is a satisfactory position. Although this is a higher use of reserves than anticipated last year's MTFP, an improved open reserve position means that the balance at this year, at the end of the next year, will actually be higher than we had anticipated at that time. Importantly, you will see that the Section 25 report, our Section 151 officer, is content with the reserves position as a result of this budget. But we must also be clear that we cannot continue to rely on reserves. The MTFP shows gaps in future years of between £8 and £12.5 million. These are not frightening, but we do need to work now to identify savings and efficiencies and to make most of the synergies of becoming a unitary council. This budget gives us the funding to do this, and it will ensure that we can deliver a balanced budget for 25-26 and see a financially sustainable future. I'd now like to turn to make some brief comments about capital expenditure, which is outlined in Section 4 of the Cabinet Report. As you're aware, during the year we've undertaken a thorough review of all major capital projects. We have again reviewed our capital programme as part of Q3 monitoring. Looking at this and our ambitions, we're proposing a number of adjustments. The details can be found in appendices 7 and 8. We're including over the next 6 years, 5-6 years, an addition of a further £145 million of new schemes. It's the next 5 years, as outlined in 4.8. The largest of this is 72 million additional highways funding from Network North and £25 million of funding from Marina Village Phase 2. However, we've also included £30 million additional spend in the maintenance of our assets and £10 million to decarbonise our estates, as I've already mentioned. These latter two areas need to be funded by this council, including through borrowing where appropriate. Previous updates you've had during the year have emphasised the extreme ambition in 23-24 spend, highlighting a risk of 20 to 30 million in slippage in spend this year. Following the latest review, we have now identified that there is £17 million that actually has to be rephased. This is made up of many smaller elements, the single most significant being on the solar farm, where key expenditure is now expected to fall early in 24-25. You'll see from Appendix 8 the additional budget plus rephasing leaves capital expenditure in both 24 and 25, 24-25 and 25-6 at extremely high levels. Both years are above £110 million. This will stretch our delivery capacity. We do need to be realistic about this, and in a number of cases, timescales and deadlines need to be reviewed within funders to ensure that delivery is appropriate, or the delivery timetable is appropriate. However, do not let this caveat take us away from the magnitude of the plan. Just taking 24-25 shows a bold array of projects that will benefit residents across our whole council area. Be that completing Grange Lido Vereda House, investing in solar farm, decarbonising our buildings, adding to our schools' capacity and properly investing in their maintenance. Nearly 23 million spent in our highways, as well as over £20 million investment in Barrow under the Town Steel and Levelling Up funding. So let me turn to the recommendations. Section 2.0 includes a large number of these. Before I go through them, I want to make one amendment to the recommendations as listed. I would ask for deletion under 2.7 of the Cabinet approval of senior leadership pay policy, as this will only go to council, go to the staffing committee, I think it's tomorrow, and so it's inappropriate for us to approve it at this stage. I will not read through all recommendations, but I will briefly summarise them. Proposals 2.1 and 2.2 ask Cabinet to note the feedback from the council tax consultation and the sections 1 by 1 officers report. Proposals 2.3 to 6 ask Cabinet to recommend to Council the increases to council tax, changes to the empty homes premium and the introduction of second homes premium for 2025. Proposal 2.7 asks you to recommend a budget and its many elements, now excluding the pay policy statement. Proposal 2.8 seeks delegation so that the Section 151 officer can make adjustments for any difference in the final balance of funding using the financial volatility reserve. Proposal 2.9 asks to recommend to Council for the capital programme to be adjusted by any slippage or acceleration in this year's actual spend. Proposal 210 and 211 ask you to approve and delegate the budgets to the Strategic Highways and Transport Committee and to the locality boards. Proposal 2.12 asks you to recommend the increase in fees and charges in line with policy. And finally, Proposal 2.13 asks for delegation to the Director of Thriving Communities in consultation with relevant portfolio holders to administer any grant received for the Household Support Fund. So in conclusion, at the minute we see so many councils, in severe financial difficulties. I said we are not one of those. We can see this clear path of financial sustainability while delivering on our council plan for the benefit of all our residents and communities. This is not without risk, and it doesn't mean that we need to act swiftly to be more efficient and generate cost savings. These savings can both fill the gaps we currently see and allow us to further refocus our spending on our priorities. I'm confident we can do this and make the next steps to make Westmoreland-on-Furness an even better place to live, work and thrive. This budget is the next step on the journey, and I'm happy to propose all the recommendations set out in section 2 to Cabinet. That is, having considered the quality impact assessment, the outcomes of public consultation and views of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, that we accept these recommendations, and I'm very happy to propose them. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Councillor Jarvis, for that very comprehensive and lucid report on our budget proposals, and I'm very happy to second those recommendations. So, do we have any Cabinet members wishing to comment at this point? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Andrew. Creating a new authority, like you're in the middle of doing, at the start of doing, is no new fee. I'm sure we'll all confirm that, all agree with that. Particularly following years of austerity and the pandemic and the challenges described by Andrew in his report and his comments. I think this is a budget to be proud of. This is a budget to be proud of. We are responding to the needs of our communities, the responsibility of maintaining our assets, and at the same time delivering services. And as I already said, no new fee. There is some pressure, as we all know, to do things quickly, which ultimately and inevitably risks all, the future for all. And so we hold the things we hold dear. So today, I think boring is good. I welcome boring. I applaud boring. Well, boring, that's exciting. Yeah. So we want stability. We are prudent. We are protecting the future of Westmoreland-on-Furness. They're all things that you expect a Cabinet and a Council to say about the authority that they're involved in. And we must manage how we do this. Rushing will lead to failure. I'm going to just reiterate that boring is good. Boring is good. And we are making this a great place through all the things that you said, of course. And I just thank Andrew and I want to thank the team, the officers involved in this. It's a huge piece of work and it really kickstarts us off in our first full year. Things that are better and greater. So, well done, everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Chairman. Delighted to support the budget, even with all the challenges that it presents us with, and some of those with which the Director of Finance and the portfolio holder had to struggle as well in getting us to where we are. But I particularly commend the list of achievements or possibilities that the budget will now make possible for the council and its residents on page 42 of our report today in paragraph 3.105. I'm not going to list them all individually. Councillor Jarvis has already listed some. I'm delighted that in my own portfolio area it includes the references to continuation of the bus travel bursary, which was only intended to be temporary for 1 year, but it's been so popular and so effective, and one also such deserved national acclaim that we're now embedding this more longer term into the budget and the bus support beneath it as well. So for me, Chair, this list exemplifies the fact that members and officers at all levels of the council are working together to achieve the vision that is embodied within the council plan. It shows that, that when the public have spoken, when members have responded to that, so have officers. And I hope that the council will recognise this as a real achievement next week. In contrast with that, sadly, was the blatant government disregard for heartfelt pleas from the Local Government Association to boost funding for local government in the settlement this year. They pointed out that the desperately harsh pressures on social care, in particular for adults and young people. Finally, the government did, of course, very belatedly respond with some extra money. Once, as the government would have well known, local authorities had already either gone out to consultation or set their draft budgets. And this used to be known as stop-go policy, where you cut back the economy and growth at one point and then suddenly give it a surge. It's very harmful to the economy, and exactly what we don't need just at this time when our economy in the UK and around the world is beginning to pull out of the very severe inflation that we've had in the last couple of years, and some genuine growth is happening. So we need a government that can actually understand how economics works and not simply intervene harmfully in how local government operates and dampen the aspirations of local people. And I note, or I think we all note, with heartfelt sympathy, the comments from the small majority of respondents to the consultation who said they thought the proposed council tax increase is too high. But as far as I know, absolutely nobody responded to the consultation saying they wanted services to be cut. So we take it for granted that residents, and particularly those who responded, do want the council to continue delivering good and indeed better services. So the balance, the challenge that we as Cabinet and next week Council have to face is how much more can we afford to realistically ask in order to make this happen. And I think you'd find most people would say they want a good council. They voted for those who are leading it, and for all members, in the hope that this would happen. And it's our duty to reconcile the difficulties of inevitable funding demands with actually yielding an effective council. And again, to response that it's alleged that the council could cut internal spending. Well, as Councillor has already hinted, there are reviews taking place. Will be job evaluation, very thoroughly conducted, and any savings that can realistically be taken, I'm sure will be taken. But we need to employ staff at a fair rate. We need to encourage staff to join the authority, and we want to deliver the best services for residents. So again, just to sum up, I'm full of admiration and praise for the work that's been carried out, and I look forward to supporting this budget next week at full council.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Archibald.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Leader, and thank you very much indeed, Councillor Jarvis, and I fully support what Councillor Jones, Councillor Hughes has said. this is indeed a terrific budget. We should be very proud of what we've managed to achieve, and we are indeed very fortunate to have such an excellent finance team working for our new council. And as Councillor Jarvis says, when you compare with the other councils that have undergone LGR, we're clearly in a much better situation as a result of the work of the finance portfolio holder, the chief financial officer, and all of the officers. So we're very, very grateful for that great work. And I'm hoping this budget will get cross-party support for it when it comes to council, because it is such an important budget and so strong. I wanted to just talk briefly about the savings that you've said that we need to identify for the following financial year, 12.5 million. And I also just wanted to note in the medium-term financial plan the commitment to put aside 5 million of the 10 million that we will get from the second homes for special projects. I want to recognise and appreciate that setting aside of 5 million for these special projects, because I think that's very important. I think it's possible and likely that actually the crises that we face will influence us to look for actually more savings so that we can spend more money on those things that we think are so important. I'm reminded that we saw a Resolution Foundation report just very recently, I think it might have been yesterday, on the state of the financial well-being of the population of this country, and it was very sad reading. People are finding life very difficult financially, and I think it was 11 million people were below a certain threshold, and we see our food banks being used more and more. We knock on doors and we see people who are not able to heat their houses properly. This is a real crisis to add to the crisis of biodiversity and climate change. And we as a council, I know my colleagues feel this, want to do all we can. So I think that we will actually, we may want to look to savings beyond 12.5 million, if that's at all possible. And I say this because obviously we'll be looking, as Councillor Jarvis said, at asset rationalisation and transformation. I think AI provides us with a great opportunity for savings. But what I really want to say is that I believe that we as councillors and as cabinet need to give our officers the space and the opportunity to really go after these savings. And we need to be very careful not to overburden our officers with other things while they look and work hard to achieve these savings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thornton.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, as Councillor Jarvis said, there's many councils who would love to present a budget like this. And I think it is a really incredible achievement for a new council. So thanks to all the officers and Councillor Jarvis. A couple of things I just wanted to highlight. A lot of the capital spending, of course, is money that we've received in grants. And I think that what this council has achieved in the last year, I think a lot of credit goes, well, a huge amount of credit goes to the chief executive and the leader. We've achieved a reputation for delivering things with government. And we've got relationships with government that I think for lots of reasons the previous council didn't necessarily have. And I think that's a huge achievement and bodes well for the future. And those relationships, many of them are with civil servants, of course, who whatever happens this year will still be there. And that's really, really important. And the whole Team Barrow project, really, I think it is demonstrating this. The other thing that, as far as achievements go, that really comes to mind with me is a couple of weeks ago, a few of us, the leader and Councillor Sanderson, went to the, well, it wasn't the opening, it wasn't the sod cutting, but it was at an intermediate stage with the building of the new Sandgate School, a £6 million project for SEND children. And we spoke to the headmaster there, and the headmaster told us of his ambition for these children, and his ambition for where these children would find their place in society, where they would work, how they would contribute. And I found that quite inspiring. And we look at the figures, but behind them is people. And the fact that this council has a budget, a solid budget, is able to do those things, I think gives me great pride. Now that's a legacy project clearly from the previous council, but I think that we've got that sort of ambition, and I think that we will be producing those sort of legacies for the future. So I think this is a great budget that I'm obviously very happy to support.
Okay, so thank you, cabinet members. I don't see anyone else wishing to contribute. So that's great to hear those endorsements from around the table this morning. So we'll move to recommendations, and it's been proposed and seconded that we set the recommendations outlined for us there in section 2, with the exception of the second to last bullet point of section 2.7 in respect of senior leadership pay policy. So all those in favour of those recommendations with that amendment, would you please indicate? Okay, thank you very much. That is clearly carried, so thank you very much once again, Councillor Jarvis and the team. So we move now to item 10, and this item I've had to declare an interest in, so I will hand over to Councillor Bell, and I will leave the room at this point.
Thank you. So, item 10, early years funding formula 2024 to 25. Sue, would you like to present the item?
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. This is an item about the early years funding formula 2024 to 25. The paper that you've received sets out the proposed early years funding arrangements and updates Cabinet on the outcome of the recent consultation with early years providers. Cabinet is the statutory decision maker on the early years funding formula, but local authorities have to consult early years providers. The school forum approves the centrally retained budget. The DfE are extending provision for free entitlement, and you may have heard quite a lot in the press about it. Currently, all parents of 3 to 4-year-olds can access 15 hours of free entitlement for 38 weeks a year, and eligible working parents can access an additional 15 hours. Parents of disadvantaged 2-year-olds can also access 15 hours of free entitlement. The provision now will be extended so that all eligible working parents can access 30 hours free entitlement for 38 weeks from the term after their child turns 9 months old. Then there's a series of extensions. From April 2024, working parents of 2-year-olds can access 15 hours a week. From September 2024, working parents of 9 months old children up to 3-year-olds can access 15 hours a week. And from September 2025, working parents of 9-month-old children up to 3 years old can access an additional 15 hours a week, so that's 30 hours in total. The DfE consulted local authorities on their proposals for funding local authorities for new entitlements, whereby the same funding rules apply to the new 2-year-olds and under 2s funding, and currently apply to 3 and 4-year-olds funding. The DfE published local authority hourly funding rate in December for new entitlement was £7.20 for 2-year-olds and £9.78 for under 2s. Westmoreland and Furness is the third lowest funded local authority in the country due to the area cost adjustments which diverts more funding to urban authorities. Westmoreland and Furness Council did respond to the DfE consultation, strongly voicing our concern for the lack of funding for more rural areas. The Schools Forum consulted early year providers on proposed funding formula for the new 2-year-old and under 2s entitlement with the following proposals. So alongside what will go out to providers, there's a centrally retained budget of 0.037 million. That's less than 1% of the total funding for the early years team to support rollout of the new entitlement. Up to 5% can be retained, but we've kept it less than 1%, and that's been approved by Schools Forum as well. There is a SEND inclusion fund budget of 0.098 million, and then 2-year-olds hourly funding base rate and a deprivation supplement. Under 2s hourly funding base rate and a deprivation supplement. The supplement is similar to what is used for the 3 to 4-year-olds funding, but it's based on new methodology, and this was a whole new world to me. IDACI, which is based on deprivation, so that's the reason for the changes. The final hourly rate is £7.20 for 2-year-olds and £9.78 for under 2s. But we still remain in the lowest few of local authorities. I hope you retain them. It's complicated. The Schools Forum at its meeting on the 17th of January recommended to Cabinet that the formula be adopted. I'm sorry, but the recommendation is technical as well. Allocate the 2 new 2-year-olds and under 2s funding in 24-25 to early years providers in Westmoreland and Furness, after taking into account the budget for the centrally provided services, which we've kept as low as we can, the SEND inclusion fund, which we have to have, and by using a basic rate of funding for 2-year-olds and for under 2s, including the deprivation supplement. So that is the recommendation from the paper.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Would you like to speak now? Reserve the right hands. Any other cabinet members who wish to speak?
Could I add something?
I'm sorry, Sue?
Could I add something?
Certainly. Would you like to add that now?
I would like to add that the early years organisations are really struggling. They've lost, some of them are closing, and it is all around the funding that they get, and also difficulties which some of you will appreciate of recruitment, because all that sort of range of jobs are all under a lot of pressure for people to appoint them. So that is complicated funding. It's adding a whole new area for them, but the feedback from them already is that they're financially finding life extremely difficult. And then that affects the families in the longer term as well. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. And Peter?
Yes, I applaud the ambition of the government in wanting this childcare to happen, but they need to fund it properly. And yet again, we have a situation where rural areas are funded less than urban areas, in the sort of myth that somehow services are cheaper to provide in rural areas, where in many cases they're actually more expensive to provide in rural areas for various reasons that we're all aware of. including, for example, house prices. And we do continually challenge this underfunding in rural areas. We're members of the Rural Services Network who do a great job in going to government, to the heart of government and challenging these things. And now and again we get a small win. But the fact that we are right at the bottom of the funding for this just shows how much this needs to be reformed. But I want to thank Sue and all the officers for what they've produced here, and hopefully this will translate itself into childcare for the people who really need it.
Thank you. Andrew.
Councillor Thornton's made much the same point as I was going to say. What is clear, though, is that the government position on urban versus rural and the lack of funding in rural is insidious. It is in assumptions about what we can charge or what we should pay. It comes in widespread in terms of the grant applications. I mean, we've recently we know that we have one of the lowest public health grants in the country. I believe the RSN estimated that rural councils receive about £130 per resident less government funding. I mean, that's a huge sum of money. That would be about £30 million for us. Doing business in rural areas is extremely expensive, and we are discriminated against in so many ways in terms of that. So, I fully support Councillor Sanson's comments on that, and that we need to keep pushing back. And so, totally agree with Councillor Thornton's.
Thank you. Are there any other cabinet members wishing to speak? Sure. So, can we move to vote then? All those in support of the recommendation, please. Thank you. Can somebody please ask Johnson to come back in?
So I assume we're now on item 11. So this is the council grants policy.
Thank you, Rita. So I have pleasure in presenting this report, which represents council grant giving policy. So what does that mean? Does that mean we've giving a lot of handouts? Well, the answer is absolutely not. So we're lucky in Westmoreland and Furness to have an active, committed, an expert, I'll say third sector. So that term has sort of fallen out of use a bit, but it sort of means it's not the government, it's not profit-making business, it's voluntary and other organisations. So the US has got, not-for-profit is quite a useful phrase. So these organisations tend to be small, tend to be very local, tend to have grown up, as it were, organically when there was a need or when there were people who were directly affected by a problem. And so what we have is a sort of an army of citizen experts. And people in this third sector are incredibly committed. They can make something out of nothing. They never give up. And we're all very grateful and be worse off without them. So all of the predecessor councils gave grants. But now we're a single council. You can imagine that those all have different systems have grown up. and we need to have a consistent approach so that all parties know the way forward and so that it's fair and transparent no matter where you are in the new council area. And this is a very detailed and complex piece of work that you have before you. And again, I'd like to thank the officers and the partners who battled it to get it into shape. So, as I said, these are grants, not handouts. They were working with valued partners, and Councillor Jarvis mentioned that we have a need to reduce expenditure, and he said through early intervention and support. So this is where this sector can really offer us help, because that early intervention and support has to be targeted, nuanced, and expert, and the third sector organisations are well placed to do that. So there's a tendency in the bigger an institution is, the more it has to be consistent, and the less able it is to nuance what it does. And the third sector and the other organisations that we deal with can, as this phrase goes, they have ways of counting to one, because each person has their own needs, and it's very difficult for a big institution to be able to count to one. They have to be able to deliver fairly across large numbers of people. So, I'd like to, I have pleasure in presenting this. We've got, now we are bigger, we have to still be able to find ways of continuing to think local, and grant giving is a way that we can affect that. So, what I'm asking you today is to approve the council grant giving policy as set out in Appendix 1, which will be publicised and rolled out across the organisation as a consistent and transparent approach. In the executive summary, you can see how this is linked to the council plan, and how this links to our delivery plan. And I have pleasure in presenting the report, asking for your support, and if you have any questions, I'm sure Johnson will be pleased to answer them. Thank you, Karen.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Derbyshire, do you wish to speak now?
Yes. I have the joy, I can say it's a joy, of attending 7 parish council meetings and various other community meetings, village halls, groups looking to try and solve issues in their areas or to take forward pretty strong ambitions. And we need fair ways and transparent ways to give money to them to help them do that. So I'm glad that this policy is being taken forward. And certainly I've got a lot of groups who are saying, these things give us not that much, but something, just to get us going, so we can take forward our ambitions. So I'm pleased to second this proposal.
Okay, thank you. So, who's wishing to speak? Councillor Hughes.
Yes, well, I also love my parish council for all the big issues that we endured together and enjoyed together. And I'd like to thank our localism officers and Councillor Taylor for the work put in on bringing this policy to fruition. So these will be grants, not loans. World Bank and International Monetary Fund, please note, when asking for these back after a certain amount of time, is actually to develop prosperity and quality of life. And and we have, and there will be built-in targets as Councillor Taylor has identified to help to continue to make Western Furness a great place to live. and work and undertake leisure activities in as well. And I do just finally, I hope that the voluntary community faith and social enterprise sector, who will be so important in making this grant process work, will make attempts to, where possible, attend our locality boards, because a lot of this work will be carried out at locality board level. And I'm sure our constitution, very certainly our constitution, encourages partners to attend and get involved in locality board work. Indeed, we encourage all members of the public to be there. And for me, that will be the icing on the cake to make this process work. So happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. Well, don't see anyone else, so we've heard this morning about our vision and values, and certainly we have set out our stall, and we do want to work collaboratively with partners, with communities, to deliver the best outcomes for residents, and this is another example of that direction of travel. So it's been proposed and seconded, so all those in favour of approving this policy, please indicate. Thank you. So again, it's carried, so thank you very much. The final item on our agenda is urgent items, and don't believe in the end we have any. So that draws to a close our meeting this morning. So thank you all very much for your participation, for your input, for all the hard work that has gone into getting us forward to this place. Another step forward in terms of the life of this house. And thank you all very much.